I do want to follow up. You made some interesting points about the governor's position, particularly about eminent domain.
Right.
Your position on eminent domain?
It shouldn't be used. It shouldn't be used for commercial purposes.
Period.
Yeah.
Interesting question directly from the audience. What should the governor's role be in the upcoming redistricting efforts?
The governor ought to provide leadership in this state to try to squeeze politics out of this process as much as he can. And that's what I would do. I'm not telling you that I'd be successful. But this is what we need, and we need a voice throughout this state. And you know, you've noticed in Houston, when I was mayor, we were able to bring people together from different points of view to get things done. And this is what we need in redistricting. We don't need districts that look like snakes that break up communities of interest just to protect or reelect or are designed to gear, you know, a district to one person or another. We don't need that. We need districts that look like they have more communities of interest together, even if it makes them more competitive. And probably more competitive is better, because there's something in this system. When one party has a monopoly, you can see abuses from time to time, as you've seen in Austin. And I will do everything that I can to remove partisanship from the process. I have a track record of doing that. See, the choice that people got to make here is whether we want somebody who wants to be an intense partisan to further their own political future, or whether you want somebody working for the future of the people of Texas. And I think the statement that I made about redistricting is something that the vast majority of our citizens from both parties would agree with. We need leadership that will say that.
And this is again from the audience. Much of the legislation and regulations at the federal and state level put the collective against the individual. And they use, for example, mandatory vaccinations, particularly, I would think, alluding to some recent ones, the unilateral annexation. What is your philosophy of government? How does that, compare, in particularly when it comes to the candidate that you're running against?
I believe that government is most accountable and responsive that's closest to the people. And that is squarely against a clear track record of one mandate after another imposed on cities, counties, local school districts by Governor Perry, period.
What about...
And let me just say, I gave everybody who reported to me, the directors of government, the directors of the departments, the police chief, fire chief, parks director, I gave them a copy of the book early when I began serving you. And it was called The Price of Government. And that book, I'm not saying I agree with everything in that book, but I told them that everything in this world has a price and everything has a limit. And too often government's response to a problem is just require more. But the city government couldn't just, and government at any level, could not just rise as a percentage of what Americans earn every year. I told people in this community that there was something that was wrong, that if the property tax year after year after year went up faster than the incomes of people, that was not right and that was not sustainable, and adopted a charter amendment to do something. And what had been close to double-digit increase in property tax revenues went down when I was mayor, because we had that kind of fiscal discipline. I also believe in straight talk, and that is that nothing's free. So when I hear Governor Perry say to a big speech in New Orleans that the job of some group is to, what did he say? It was, I'm not trying to put words, it was like make the federal government as irrelevant or inconsequential as possible to the lives of Americans. Well, just tell that to somebody who's a disabled vet. Okay? Who do you think is going to pay the salaries of those Border Patrol agents, which we need more of? The function of government is not to make it inconsequential, but to make sure that it focuses on what its core competence does, and does that well, and does that with efficient use of the tax dollars. I believe in free markets and private enterprise. Anybody who sat around that council table with me will tell you that. But I don't believe that so much power should be accumulated in the office of governor. For generation after generation, we've limited our terms. I could ask for a show of hand right now, people who support term limits in the city of Houston. Some say they're too long, some people may think they're too short, but I was one of the ones who stood up for term limits. And I've always done so. There's some people against them. But one reason I did is I figured that people stay in an office too long and they start forgetting who they serve. There's two ways to do it. And I asked people to help me impose a term limit in this election on the office of governor.
Would you favor a state sales tax instead of the existing property tax system?
We have a state sales tax.
No, I mean, I'm sorry.
And Governor Perry voted for
the
Governor
reading cards prepared by others.
Yeah.
Would you expand the amount of money collected in lieu of a property tax?
Well, okay, but let me start with this. Governor Perry did vote for the last increase in the sales tax. I think that Ms. Medina made a lot of good points during the primary. And if you watched her style, it's sort of more like my, a little bit more no-nonsense type than the professionals. But I think it would be, if you raised all of our sales taxes to the point that, how we say it, it eliminated all the property tax and what we use those revenues for, then boy, would I like to have the tractor dealership in Texarkana, Arkansas, or Roswell, New Mexico. And, would people buy, people buy white goods over the internet? You can buy cars over the internet now. I mean, this is a problem that you have whenever you have sales taxes, which are much higher than other jurisdictions. It tends to shift jobs and sales away.